When people hear I came into a lot of money, they think I must have always been ambitious or flashy or chasing success. But the truth, I wasn't any of those things. I was the quiet sibling, the one who slipped into rooms, not made an entrance. I grew up in a middle-class home with two siblings, Katie and Marcus. Katie, the oldest, was the overachiever. She became a lawyer, always organized, always in control. Marcus, the middle child. Charismatic, funny, bit of a hustler, always had a scheme. Me? I was the baby. Quiet, nerdy. Obsessed with computers since age 9. While Katie was collecting student awards and Marcus was sneaking out to parties, I was taking apart routers, writing code, teaching myself how the internet worked. And no one noticed. Not really. Not in a bad way. Just, I wasn't the center of attention. And that became my comfort zone. Growing up, we weren't poor, but we weren't rich either. Mom worked as a school counselor. Dad was a mechanic. Everything we had was carefully budgeted. Vacations were road trips. Birthdays meant homemade cake and a card signed by all 5 of us. There were no trust funds, no fancy college tours, no safety nets. We were raised on grit, not gifts. And yet, despite that, we were close. Every Sunday we'd have dinner. Pot roast, green beans, mashed potatoes. We'd argue about politics, laugh until someone choked on soda, then end the night watching reruns of old shows. Back then, I used to think, if I ever made it big, I'd share everything. I'd take care of everyone. Funny how things change. When I was 22, I landed a remote job at a small tech firm. Nothing glamorous, just solid, quiet work. My siblings barely noticed. Katie once joked, "So, you work from your couch? Must be nice." Marcus said, "You're lucky you don't deal with real clients like me." I laughed. Let them think what they wanted. What they didn't know was that I was working 60, 70, sometimes 80 hours a week. I didn't go out much. I barely dated. I was building things, learning fast, saying yes to freelance gigs that paid in crypto or startup equity when no one else wanted them. I didn't even tell my friends, because a part of me believed, maybe this will never amount to anything. And if it does, maybe I still won't be the kind of person who can say, I deserve it.
Reflectively. Then came GridLayer, a startup that needed a back end built from scratch. They were scrappy. No funding, just 4 people and an idea. They offered me 1.6% equity in exchange for 10 months of contract work. Katie would have laughed at the offer. Marcus would have asked for cash up front, but I said yes. Not because I thought it would make me rich, but because I liked the project and I believed in the founders. 10 months turned into 18. My code helped them scale. My ideas became part of their product. And then, one day, they called. "We're getting acquired!" I didn't say anything. I just stared at the screen. That 1.6% was now worth $8 million. The wire transfer happened on a Thursday. I was sitting at my tiny desk in the corner of my studio apartment. My fridge was half empty, my socks had holes, and now my bank account had more zeros than I knew what to do with. I remember feeling like I'd stepped into a movie, but not a happy one, a confusing one, because my first thought wasn't joy. It was, don't tell anyone. I kept working for 2 more weeks, quietly, just to feel normal. Then I quit, told my boss I needed time to reset. They didn't ask questions. I started researching financial advisors, lawyers, asset protection. I opened a trust, bought an anonymous LLC. I didn't buy a Lambo. I didn't move into a penthouse. I stayed in that same apartment, eating frozen lasagna and reading about how sudden wealth destroys relationships. And every Sunday, I still went home for dinner. Pot roast, green beans. Katie would complain about work. Marcus would talk about his new brand idea. And I would smile and stay silent. Because how do you tell your family that your entire life changed and you're terrified that theirs will too? I wasn't afraid of them being mad. I was afraid of them treating me differently, of love turning into leverage, of affection becoming a transaction, of guilt replacing gratitude. I was afraid that money would take what little was simple and make it complicated. So I stayed quiet until Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving at Katie's always looked perfect. Candles lit, place cards, wine poured. It felt normal. Until it didn't. Marcus teased, "Still using that college laptop?" Katie laughed, "Seriously, upgrade already." I shrugged, "It still works." Then Dad asked, thoughtful, "So, how's work?" The table went silent. "Same as usual," I said. "Freelance stuff." Katie gave me a look. "Claire said your name came up. Something about a company? Grid layer?" Fork midair, smile frozen. Marcus leaned in, eager. "What deal?" Surprised, Katie asked, "Are you a millionaire?" Silence. And then they knew. And just like that, it wasn't Thanksgiving anymore. It was an interrogation. Katie locked eyes with me. "Why didn't you say anything?" Marcus followed. "You lied to us." I stayed calm. Barely. "I didn't lie," I said. "I just didn't tell you." Then came the guilt. "You don't trust us? You're sitting on millions while we're struggling. We're your family." That word again. Family. Like it meant ownership. Katie leaned in. "We deserve to know." That stopped me. Deserved? I stood. Quiet. Calm. Firm. No one deserves anything just because we share DNA. The room fell completely still. No reply, no apology, just cold air. I walked out before dessert. That night, the messages came in. "So money means more than family now? Don't bother coming for Christmas." I read them. I didn't reply. Because now I understood. The real mistake wasn't staying quiet. It was believing they'd respond with love instead of resentment. The days after Thanksgiving were quiet, not peaceful, just hollow. No calls, no messages. Just the hum of the fridge, the ticking of the hallway clock, except the one message from Mom. "I know they overreacted, but maybe you could have said it nicer." I didn't reply, because part of me wanted to scream, and the other part just sleep. Sleep through the guilt, sleep through the resentment, sleep through the realization that nothing would be the same. And yet, I kept checking my phone, like some desperate part of me still hoped someone would say, "We get it now, we're sorry." But the silence lingered, thick, intentional. Until the letter came.
A real letter. Folded, handwritten, Katie's handwriting, sharp, precise. Inside, a list. A literal list of ways I'd betrayed them. Bullet points, like a business memo. Selfish, secretive, arrogant. And at the bottom, in bold pen strokes, maybe you were never one of us to begin with. I read that line 3 times. The pen had pressed hard into the paper, like she wanted the words to bruise. I folded the letter, deliberate, slow. I didn't cry, but something inside me folded too. And I knew, with absolute clarity, Christmas wouldn't be awkward because I wouldn't be going. I stared at the letter for hours. Not reading it, just holding it. Like it might change if I waited long enough. But it didn't. It stayed cruel. It stayed final. Maybe you were never one of us to begin with. The words repeated like an echo. A loop, a curse. Spoken once, but it lived on repeat. I walked through the apartment like I wasn't in it. Every surface spotless, every photo perfectly staged. But none of it felt like home, because home was built on lies. Lies I told to keep the peace. Lies they told to keep me small. I poured a drink, then another. Stared out the window like the city might answer. I wasn't sad. Not exactly. I was emptied. Like they'd reached inside me and turned off the lights. And in that dark, numb place, I started to remember. The birthdays missed, the jokes that cut, the silence when I needed them loud, the subtle ways they made me feel less worthy, less valid, less seen. It wasn't just Thanksgiving. It was all of it, a slow erosion over years, 1,000 tiny betrayals, and now it was exposed. They thought I left them behind. But the truth? They'd let go of me a long time ago. I just finally noticed. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. I didn't leave the apartment for 3 days. Didn't shower. Didn't speak. I just existed. Like a paused film. Stuck between scenes. The letter sat on the table, still folded. Still poisonous. But on the 4th morning, something shifted. Not big, not loud, just a flicker like a match in a cave. I opened the blinds. Let the sun touch my face. It was soft and real. The kind of light you forget exists when you're in the dark too long. And I realized something. They could hate me, they could judge me, blame me, rewrite me. But I was still here, still breathing, still standing. That had to mean something. So I moved, slowly, stiffly, but with purpose. I cleaned. Folded blankets, wiped the counters, threw out the untouched pie. It was starting to mold. I took out the trash. It felt symbolic. And when I passed the mirror, I didn't look away. I looked at myself. For the first time in weeks. Tired eyes, heavy shoulders. But there was something else. Quiet strength. A kind of resilience that doesn't shout. And I thought, maybe this isn't the end. Maybe this is the start. Not of reconciliation, but of reclaiming. Reclaiming my story, my time, my peace, my name, my worth. Without needing their permission. Without needing their approval. Just mine.
The city hadn't changed. Same sidewalks, same noise, same coffee shops with fogged-up windows, but something in me had. I left the apartment, not for groceries, not to escape, but to live. I walked without a destination, just forward. No plan, no script. And for the first time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt here, present, real. Every face I passed reminded me I wasn't alone in pain, in healing, in trying to stitch together the parts that felt broken. At a corner, I paused, watched the crosswalk count down, took out my phone, thumb hovered over old messages. Most were noise, ghosts of who I thought I had to be. Then, one name, Jules. My friend. The one who didn't push, didn't pry, just stayed. I typed, "Hey, you around? I could use a walk and a talk." Then hit send. No overthinking, no fear of what it meant, just truth. Simple, honest. I was done apologizing for needing people, done shrinking so others could feel big. This wasn't some grand cinematic comeback. It wouldn't make headlines. But for me, it was everything. It was the first real breath I'd taken in weeks. It was a whisper to the world. I'm not gone. It was the first step back into the world. On my terms. One step, but mine. The cafe was quiet. Midday lull. Clinking mugs, a jazz track humming low. I saw Jules before they saw me. Same denim jacket, same nervous bounce of their leg. They looked like safety, like memory. They stood as I approached. No questions, just a hug. And I almost fell apart. Because in that single gesture, there was no judgment, just presence. A kind of wordless knowing. We sat. I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup like it might anchor me. It was too hot to drink, but I needed something to hold. I didn't know where to start. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was space to breathe. Jules didn't push, didn't ask, just waited. Waited like they knew I'd come back to myself in my own time. I breathed. Deep. Let the steam from the cup fog my glasses. Then finally, I spoke. Vulnerable. They told me I wasn't part of the family anymore. The words felt like glass in my throat. Jules flinched. Not with surprise, but with pain. Not pity, recognition. They reached across the table, rested their hand over mine. Firm, gentle, real. Firmly. You are family. Not theirs, mine. And I couldn't hold the tears anymore. They slipped down silently. No drama, just release. Because in all the noise and blame and silence, this was clear. Jules had never left. They didn't need explanations or apologies. They just needed me to show up. And I did. Maybe late, maybe messy, but here. It wasn't healing all at once, but it was something. A start. A soft place to land. The kind of beginning that says, gently,
You don't have to do this alone.
The conversation with Jules stayed with me. Not like a memory, more like a bruise you keep pressing. Tender, quiet, real. I walked home slowly, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel afraid to be with my own thoughts. They followed me, not like shadows, but like echoes. Echoes of everything I hadn't said. I knew this wasn't over. Not because I wanted more conflict, but because I was still carrying too much I'd never laid down. There were still things buried deep. Letters I never sent. Truths I never said out loud. Feelings I'd swallowed whole. I opened the drawer. There they were. Pages I wrote and rewrote. Angry, begging, cold, honest. Some were rants. Some were confessions. One was for her, my sister, the one who cut deepest. I read it now like a stranger might. And I saw myself differently. Not perfect, not blameless, but not the villain either. Just someone who was hurting and didn't know how to ask for help. Just someone trying, always trying. I folded it, put it in an envelope. No address yet, just intention. And maybe that was the bravest thing I'd done so far. Not send it, but be willing to face what I wrote. To read it without flinching. To sit with my own voice on paper. To stop hiding from the weight of the past. To name it so it couldn't name me anymore. I walked away from the door, but I didn't carry the same weight anymore. There was no dramatic music, no sudden clarity, just the soft truth of having done the thing I was scared to do. And in its place, a quiet. Not emptiness, not silence, just space. A space I could grow into. For the first time, I wasn't trying to fix the past. I wasn't clinging to old versions of myself or of them. I was just here. Breathing. Still uncertain, but not lost. Still healing, but not hiding. Still hurting, but no longer afraid of the pain. I didn't know what would happen next. If the letter would be read, if a reply would come, if that door would ever open again. But I did know this. I could live without the ending I imagined, because I was finally writing a different story. One where my worth didn't depend on being understood, where love didn't mean being right or being perfect or even being forgiven. Just being willing. Willing to knock, willing to feel, willing to stay with myself, to sit in the unknown, to make peace with unfinished chapters. And so I walked on, not toward closure, but toward the kind of beginning that doesn't need a clean ending, the kind that grows quietly, day by day, one breath at a time, one step at a time. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. So if you feel empty, if you're still waiting for the right words, the right time, the perfect closure, let this be enough. Not because it's everything, but because it's a beginning. Because you showed up. And because sometimes that's the most powerful thing you can do. It started as a whisper in my chest. That pull to confront it, to not let silence win. The envelope was still in my pocket, its corners worn from me rubbing it
over and over. A small square of paper, but it felt like a brick in my hand. I walked, not fast, not slow, just forward, toward her place. Every step louder than the last. Each block brought back something sharp, something soft. Memories crowded my mind like fog on a windshield. Tense dinners, slammed doors, voices cracking with things neither of us meant. But under all of it, love. Or maybe just the aching shape of it. We were never good at tenderness. We knew how to fight, how to protect, how to hurt. But maybe now we had to learn something else. I stood in front of the door, paused, hand raised but not yet knocking. Would she open it? Would she read the letter? Would she even recognize me anymore? I breathed in, held it, let it go, then knocked. Once, twice, waited. Time slowed. I heard footsteps, or imagined them. No answer. Just stillness. I slid the envelope through the slot. My heart pounded. Not from fear, from release, from doing something I had put off for too long. I turned away, not defeated, not this time, because this moment wasn't about her response. It was about me choosing not to be silent anymore. It was about showing up, even if no one clapped, even if no one opened the door, even if the letter went unread. It was the knock that mattered. The courage to stand there, to try. That was mine, and no one could take it away.